longer.
Yeah.
Leroy Horde, not that you were ever up for a rushing title.
He's a running back.
But you're a running back.
Yeah.
So I think your opinion here is relevant.
Curtis Martin, I don't know.
Yeah, these guys want to win rushing titles.
Absolutely.
I take Nick Chubb.
And by the way,
Why wouldn't you?
There's probably a healthy financial piece to this too. If you win a rushing title, if you're
not as much as when you make the money that he makes, right? Like they've already paid him accordingly.
They have, but do you think he has? And I imagine we could find out. Do you think there's a bonus structure in his contract? Because this isn't a rushing title means you're the best at your position.
There could be some type of bonus, but again, when you get to the status of a Nick Chubb, you don't have a contract with a whole bunch of bonuses. You just straight get paid.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's the whole point of it.
By the way,
is
Leroy,
that
do you agree with
he's gotten himself to a place like that. Yeah?
Do you agree with Jay? Because I don't agree. I don't think winning the rushing title means you're the best running back in the league that year necessarily.
It's the metric we use, Bill.
That's not the metric I use. I don't know.
I
You don't have to.
There is no metric
Yeah.
to compare running backs that play under different systems.
True.
You see what I mean? Because if Nick Chubb had gotten the amount of attempts that Derrick Henry had gotten, he'd win the rushing title every year.
No question.
So
although he's
you can't really do
yards
that.
per carry, though.
Huh?
Nick Chubb's ninth in yards per carry. Surprisingly.
Okay, ninth. Well, if he was top 5, would he be leading the league in rushing?
Yes.
Yes.
I've already done the math.
Okay.
If he had the carries that Jacobs had,
so
he
that
would be
means
in the
that
league.
you could go to 8 other guys and say this. If Nick Chubb had gotten those amount of carries, he'd easily win the rushing title. You understand?
Well, easily, it would be by about 3 yards.
There's guys who have less carries who are averaging more yards. You could say it about those guys, too.
Your metric is yards per carry. The reason
No, that's
why,
not. It's
I
not.
always said, because you've always said, I look at yards per carry.
I look at yards per carry, but there's a few things that go into it, and there's no chance I would look at Josh Jacobs and say he's the best back in the NFL this year.
No,
I don't even think he's top 5. I know he's got the yardage, but I don't think he's top 5.
But part of the reason why it's so different is that they run the ball out of a lot of spread. And they try to run Nick Chubb with tight ends and extra tackles.
Right.
You see what I mean? So the offenses are different. And so I look at Nick Chubb having the success in the yards per carry in this offense when they are the running game is the catalyst for the offense will give a higher grade to me than a team that has a quarterback that tries to throw it 30, 40 times a game.
Yeah, I would echo that.
By the way,
it means a lot to the linemen, too, doesn't it? I've heard running backs say they want to do this for their linemen.
Linemen take pride in having a running back behind them who is successful.
Right.
I think when I went to the Pro Bowl, the offensive line was more excited than I was. Right? Simply because I didn't care one way or another because it was just kind of a thing of, they just started doing the fullback thing and I was listed as a fullback even though I was the primary ball carrier. So I kind of had a sour taste about it. I took it. I ain't gonna say I didn't go.
Yeah,
I'm gonna take it.
and you should, too.
Right.
What's your shirt say, Leroy? What's your shirt say?
Oh, man.
Feel the sleeve.
By the way, guys,
The you thing.
Nick Chubb is already 84th all time in rushing yards. He's already in the top 100 in 4 years.
Because the average length of the career of running backs is 3.5 years.
Well, it's
He's
not
fifth
Jay,
among
you have to
active
be,
players.
Go ahead.
You have to be careful, Jay, from this standpoint. When you take the average life of a running back and say it's X amount of years, you're including all running backs.
Yeah, well, exactly.
You ain't including the guys who have played and started and
it's the average,
were
though.
able to be
It's not a mean.
contributors.
It's an average. So what?
No,
the reason
but
the
it's
reason I
all
use that as a
players
number,
listed
Leroy,
as a running back, though.
Right, but the reason I use that is because I think it demonstrates exactly how hard it is for these guys not only to get a job in the league as a running back, But because these young 21, 22-year-old fresh legs are constantly being churned into the league from the college ranks, and it's long been looked at as the position that you can have an immediate impact at, it makes it that much more difficult to hold on to that job, not just to get that job. And that's why the 3.5-year average, I think, is relevant.
But I think that's the average for all NFL players.
No, it's not.
Pretty sure
it all goes to talent.
It does.
Right?
Talent always wins.
And so when you say that if we talk about all the running backs in the last 10, 15 years that have made an impact or that we know who they are and weren't just flashes in the pan.
Right.
None of those guys played 3.5 years.
Of course not. That's why it's an average.
And so from
the
that,
average for an NFL player is 3.3 years.
Here, for example,
it might be shorter.
You're averaging the people in the running back room. And I'm only averaging the contributors.
Well,
that would be
but
different.
Of course. But the point is that it is and I think you would agree with this, you played this position. If you're a left tackle and you're drafted into the league and you're a premier left tackle, what's the saying? Don't have to worry about that position for a decade. They ever said that about a running back?
Never. And they won't.
Never.
Because what happens is,
go ahead, Leroy.
of all the positions on the field, you have to think long and hard when that first contract is up, how long you're going to extend them.
Very true.
Right? That doesn't
Yes.
happen with any other. That doesn't happen with any other position. In fact, to the point where if you have a good first 2 years, you better go back to the table.
Yes.
And hold out and make a stink and do whatever.
And that's why they often do.
Yep.
Right. And so from that standpoint, the position is paid differently, it's played differently, and the demands as a player are different.
And you know what, too, Leroy?
Everything gets constricted.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The time, everything gets constricted. So that 4 or 5 year deal you go into the league with is technically 2 or 3 years.
More guys should
good
hold out.
or bad.
More
You're
guys
right.
should hold out.
And,
they should.
And
Right.
Leroy, even to further make your point, Mel Kiper famously a decade or so ago said, why would anybody draft running back in the first round? Why are they doing this? And what was the trend in the NFL? They stopped getting drafted high in the draft, and first rounders at running back also, that number went down because, to your point, the league has figured out that is a disposable position that has an endless stream of talent coming every year behind them. And that's not the case with left tackles. It's not even the case with wide receivers.
I don't necessarily agree with that from this standpoint.
Of course you don't.
With the fact that you just think you can just get another one.
It's
right.
That's how the teams
No,
think.
that's been the mentality,
You know how
sadly.
teams think.
You know what?
But it is, but guess what teams struggle? The teams that have that mentality, and then they get into December and January and can't run the football.
Yeah,
not
but look at the Patriots for years.
What do you mean it's not true?
It's not true.
Look at the Patriots and Bill Belichick.
The elite running backs are generally on mediocre or bad teams. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Sadly,
it's
you're
a
right.
passing league.
It is a passing league.
It is. I'm not.
And look at the running backs Bill was winning Super Bowls
I'm not
with. Name them.
disputing. I'm not disputing
McKinnon.
where. Listen, I'm not disputing where the game has gone. Right? It is a passing league, but I find watching football and getting frustrated as hell when you have a situation that requires you to have a running back either at the end of the game or in the red zone and stuff like that.
And you don't
these
have
teams
one.
can't run the ball.
Yeah, you're absolutely
And
right.
these are the teams that during the course of a year it catches up to you.
It does. Yeah, it's
Right,
not
but who
important
is-
until you really need one.
But who is the last team that won a Super Bowl with a great running back?
Tampa Bay.
Well,
No.
I
They
would
didn't have a
say
great
this.
running back. They had a
Leonard
great team.
Fournette
I would say this.
I mean,
They
a good
may
year,
not.
but he's not a
They may
great-
not have had a.
They had a great
They
quarterback.
may not have
Leonard
had
Fournette
a
was
great
good
running.
back.
They may not have had a great running game, But in those pivotal moments in the playoffs, they had to run the football.
Playoff Lenny. They had a guy that could run it.
Thank you.
They had a guy
Everybody's
that
got
could
a guy
run it.
that could run it.
No,
No,
not like
not
that.
everybody.
Not
That's
like
a man.
that.
That's a
Leonard
man.
Fournette's
See,
an average
and that's-
NFL running
And
back.
that's where I'm trying to get away from.
They're not all
That
interchangeable.
comment right there.
Well,
Yeah.
but here's
Is
the
that
point.
you think that anybody could do it? Let's just go get another guy.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that's not true.
I told you
But
what
Leroy,
Holmes said.
the point is that the few guys that get paid big money at running back none of those guys have won a championship.
Hell, you can even make the argument they haven't had much playoff success.
Very few
Period.
playoff wins among the top
Yeah.
paid running
No,
backs.
I mean, and that's a fact.
I mean,
I don't think
but
anybody.
who's the
Derrick
highest
Henry?
paid?
Derrick Henry would be the best example of success in the playoffs.
But they haven't done
Probably.
anything in the playoffs.
Yeah. No,
What have they done in the playoffs?
Well-
What have they won? Like one playoff game?
Joe Mixon.
They're
Are
not
you
winning
guys ready?
anything
The,
this
the
year.
highest paid running backs
Joe
right now?
Joe
Yeah.
Mixon should be the
Christian
answer.
McCaffrey.
Joe
Derrick
Mixon's
Henry.
probably the best back whose
Year
team's
by year salary. So like this year,
yeah.
Zeke, 18.2
Haven't
million.
won
Go
anything in the
Bucks!
playoffs.
Dalvin Cook, 11.8.
Haven't won anything in the playoffs
Joe Mixon, 11.4.
last year.
success.
Super Bowl.
Derrick Henry, 9.9.
Haven't done anything in the playoffs.
Saquon, 7.2.
Hasn't been in a playoff game till this year.
Alvin Kamara is next.
Nothing in the playoffs.
He got
And then-
he got robbed.
Well, hell, if that's
Nick
our
Chubb.
standard, Deshaun Watson. Then I mean, it doesn't make you a failure, but if you're
So Joe
if you're
Mixon is the
only going to
correct
use as
answer.
playoff or success at a position as playoff success,
Who said success?
Wait,
in
but
position?
but but then
That
but
wasn't the
here.
argument.
yeah, that's the argument.
But
you just
here-
made.
No,
but
my
they-
argument is
Whoa.
that you don't need a great back to have success in the
Whoa.
postseason. That has
Whoa.
nothing to do with what you said.
Yeah, it
Whoa.
does.
No, it has nothing
I
to
would
do.
say
You said
I
I was
would
judging
say
them
this.
how good they were based on their success in the playoffs.
No, you're
I
talking
wasn't.
about their lack of success in the
Bull.
playoffs.
Yes.
Let's not get
Bull.
off track
Bull.
because Leroy's
No, you got us off track. But go ahead, Leroy.
Bull, here's the
Yeah.
deal.
Ding ding.
rabbit hole.
Ding ding ding.
I would be inclined to agree with some of what you're saying, if not for Joe Thomas.
I don't
Break
And
that down.
you could
Break-
say
Elaborate.
you,
Hold
you
on.
can say
I just dissed you.
you
Bring it
can
back.
you can say that about a lot of positions that have great players
Agreed.
that have played the position. So why all of a sudden are we putting this all on running back? There's
I
been
see.
great
Well, I'm
quarterbacks
not.
who
I'm
damn
not. The
wait,
league is.
Dan Marino never won the Super Bowl.
Agreed.
It's a fact.
Okay, like you.
But
like
most of the great quarterbacks have
the
won Super
great,
Bowls.
Wait,
Go
the
ahead.
great Aaron Rodgers has won.
Talk about it.
Okay.
So, like, you can
It's
do this
hard.
at a lot of positions. So let me ask you a question. Aaron Rodgers only won one Super Bowl.
right.
Would you pay him $50 million a year?
At this point, no.
Yes.
When he was in his prime, yeah.
Leroy, I think what you're saying is, and I think sometimes.
But Aaron Rodgers gives him a chance every year.
Hold on. I think what Leroy is saying, and I think a lot of professional athletes get upset.
Yeah.
Because we tend to minimize just how difficult it is to win at the highest level.
Well,
you
right.
could be
Leroy just did that.
all-time great. You could be the best at your position.
Hell, Barry Sanders.
But if you don't got a coach, if the ball don't bounce the right way, if you get injured, if you don't got a quarterback, there's people who end up not winning championships, and we put so much emphasis on it, and we kind of tear down these people's resumes, but it's hard to win.
Gee, you're
I
right, but I'm
swear.
not tearing anybody down.
No, both.
I-
Think
let,
about the
let me
teams
make
that were
my
great
let me
in
make
the
my own
80s.
point. Let me make my own point. My point is that the having a great quarterback is the best indicator for having a chance to win, and there's no debate on that.
No, there isn't. But the point I would make, like in the 70s and
Great
80s,
defense.
the teams that won, the Steelers with Franco
a different
Harris.
game those
it
days.
was, I know,
Yeah.
but and then you even look in the 80s. All of these teams that were dominating 70s and 80s and even look at the
Even
I know
the
the Cowboys were well-rounded, but
Yeah.
they had an all-time great running back.
They did.
That doesn't
happen
it
anymore.
doesn't mean you're going to win today. You
Can I-
better have an all-time great
Can
quarterback.
I ask Leroy a question? Leroy, my man. First of all, sorry about the college thing. We're not even gonna go there.
Hey,
we got-
wait. Let me tell you a story. So the Michigan game started off at 4.
Yo.
And at about 5:30, they had thrown 2 pick sixes, and I'm like, this game is done. You can't win a game throwing 2 pick sixes.
Yeah, it's very
I don't care
difficult.
what level, right? So then I'm sitting in my jacuzzi, chilling,
Woo,
getting ready for the
rich
new year.
flex.
Get ready to watch Ohio State.
And I'm sipping on watching Ohio State. And I thought the game played out just as I thought. Ohio State got to run them off the field. And they did a good job of it. But I was shocked at how Georgia could keep up, right? That took me for a loop. Then we get to the end of the game.
Woo.
And that kicker went out there. His chest was swole. Say it with your chest. He was out. He walked on that field. And I got up out my jacuzzi. And my son said, "What's up?" I said, "He ain't got no chance." He had no chance because he was way too confident. And I ain't going to say I rooted against him.
Yeah.
But I did say, please don't let me have to deal with Tyvus on Wednesday.
Right.
I was so ready, Leroy.
Oh, that would have been classic.
Talk about the best end
I
of the
was
year
gonna
ever.
bring the rings, the trophy, everything.
And the ball did a quick duck hook, and I was like,
That would have been the greatest end to a year ever. Michigan
yeah,
losing and Ohio State
Listen,
winning.
I had my
but I would
speeches
say
ready.
this.
What I was gonna
say this. And as soon as he missed that kick, it say 5, 4,
Yeah.
3,
The ball
2.
dropped.
Happy New Year. But I'll say this. Were those the two best
Yes.
semifinals that we've seen?
They
It
were
was,
good.
it
I mean,
can't get any better.
Both of them got targeting calls that should have been called that changed the outcome.
Don't
Yeah.
be that guy.
My
Hey,
goodness.
Don't
there
be
you go.
that guy.
There you
Come
go.
on now.
There you go.
They wasn't targeting?
I don't give a crap.
There
Don't
was
let
no
the
way
referees
they could,
decide the
ain't no
game.
way they could call that, bro.
I'm okay with them not calling both of those.
Yeah.
I
Come
am.
on.
So,
It was there.
It's a stupid
Let
rule
me
anyway.
ask
One of
you
the
that-
players would have had to miss the first half of the national championship game. They weren't so
Yeah.
egregious that they had to be called. And in my mind, it's targeting is like the Supreme Court defined pornography. I don't know what the hell it is until I see it.
Yeah.
I know targeting when I see it.
That was it.
It
Marvin
wasn't.
Harrison?
No. Listen, I would love to see
Bring
who
Robert
it
in.
was.
Bring Robert in.
Has Robert on the line yet? Robert, was that targeting on Harrison in the end zone?
Well, it was close, right? Like, it's forcible contact to the head and neck area, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's.
But did it meet your
well,
strict
think of it-
definition
well-
of it, though?
I'm sorry.
Did it meet your strict definition? To me, I think because it's so punitive, the player would have to sit out the first half of the championship game. To me, it better be a no-brainer. It's like Hall of Fame discussion. If you're waffling on whether or not a player goes in the Hall of Fame, he doesn't.
you can't make that. You can't change that call. Based on the circumstances. It either is or
I
it
know,
isn't.
but they do that for like pass interference at the end of the game. We see that all the time.
Well, I mean, I think people say that, but I don't know how true that actually is.
Robert,
So it was targeting in your mind. It was targeting then.
I think so.
Go Bucks.
Wow.
was the Michigan targeting at the end of the Michigan TCU game?
Yes.
Oh,
that,
my goodness.
That one looked like targeting to me too, but I think that one was more of, was it crowned because it wasn't head and neck?
Right.
Was it truly crowned? And I don't think that he hit directly with the crown. And they've slightly changed that crown definition to be more above the forehead this year, to actually be the top of the head, where it had been anywhere above the face mask area.
Would you have thrown the flag?
I think I would have thrown the flag.
And both. Wow.
But
Gray ref. Ref
But-
Robert.
But throwing the flag and reviewing it and having the slow-mo and all the different angles, you would think that they would do that too. But Leroy, on the kick, as Leroy said, on that kick, the Ohio State game, I swear to you, the first thing I thought of was golfing with you. And like you would have said, like dead left shrimp or one of those.
Dead left shrimp.
No, you know what I did, Robert? Here's what I did. The ball went up, and I went, hook 'em horns.
That had no shot. That had no shot.
No.
No shot. No shot.
I think he missed it because his big one earlier barely made it. So he was thinking, I got to put a little extra on this one.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. I mean, I'm not a kicker.
He overkicked.
Let me ask both of you a question that's going back to the Browns. if the Browns were to switch up their offensive scheme, and they were going to more of a spread look with Deshaun Watson, do you think Nick Chubb would be better? Because I know you was talking about Leroy that right now he runs it with tight ends and extra fullbacks. Do you think he would be more effective if they went to the spread? Because it looks like to me that could be potentially where they go.
What happens is it does two things. It makes the defense have to declare what they're going to stop. Okay? So if you go out there and you're spread, they're either going to put 6 in the box or they're not. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's going to be definitive because you got people spread out. And that gives Nick a bunch of room to operate. Okay? Whereas the other way, it's a little easier when you have 2 tight ends and you try to get in running formations. They can bring guys up and then drop them out because you don't have that many people in the route. Mm-hmm. And they can disguise it a little bit better, whether it's a run defense or you trying to defend the pass with coverage. They can disguise it a little bit better when you have 2 tight ends or you have a tight formation offensively. But when you spread it out, it has to be more definitive because you're not going to be playing games with them guys running around in the secondary and Deshaun Watson at quarterback.
Well, but here's the thing, though, Leroy. If you don't have people on the outside that can get separation consistently, it doesn't really matter. I don't care what kind of front you're running because you're only going to put the numbers out there that you think are necessary to cover those guys. You don't necessarily have to go 3 over 2 or 3 over 4, 3 over 2 or 4 over 3, anything like that. Because if you don't think that those guys can beat man coverage, go ahead, play man and keep the bodies in the box that you need to handle the run. We sit back and we look at these things and we say, well, Nick Chubb would definitely be so much better if they had gone to this package. These coaches do this for a living, right? I think that a lot of these guys, they know what they need to do. And although it may seem obvious on the outside, they've thought through those possibilities, but it certainly changes things. And looking at Deshaun, he's definitely getting more comfortable after, being away from the game so long. I mean, almost brought the team back in those crazy conditions a couple of weeks ago at home when it was cold and windy. Wasn't really surprised with what I saw against Washington.
I was just sitting there thinking about it. Jay was talking about the situation with running backs and how it's different, and I think the way that teams look at running backs kind of devalue their worth. And then I go back and look at some of the great running backs that got an opportunity to stay with a team for a long period of time and just really stake out a claim. I think they should have something special in the cap where if you look at running backs, it's a different type of scale. It's a different cap where at least it would give running backs an opportunity to make a certain amount of money and plus add something to the game. Right now, we look at a guy like Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb is a guy who we like to have around. They paying him, but look how many running backs just have 2 years and they're just done. So I don't know what the league can do about trying to go about doing a running back position.
They're not going to do anything though.
No, I don't think you can really do anything like that. And, you get paid based on your value. And as much as I like running backs, they're generally the smartest players and definitely the best looking players on the team. But seriously, you look around the league and you watch the way that backs are interchangeable. It's not that, there are some guys that can't do some special things, but you better have something special because a lot of times backs can be replaced with other backs, and those guys, as long as the line is good, can do pretty much the same thing. The positions that are valued, you got quarterbacks, you got guys that rush the quarterback, and you got guys that catch from the quarterback. Those are the guys that are the most highly valued. I think it's interesting watching what's happened with tight ends, though. Tight ends have become more and more valuable here in the last couple of years. as pass catchers as well, and their scale is definitely changing.
By the way, one clarification. It was a bad graphic by you guys. That's a bad job. Nick Chubb is really fifth in yards per carry. The ninth includes quarterbacks, which shouldn't be on that list.
No.
So he's really fifth, and a couple of the guys ahead of him only had like 100 carries this year.
I knew he couldn't be ninth because he's fourth and fifth in carries.
In terms of legitimate guys who have at least 200 carries, Aaron Jones is the best, averaging 5.3 yards per carry. I'll include Pollard, who's just under 200 carries at 5.3. Then Travis Etienne of Jacksonville at 5.2, and then Chubb is next.
Yeah.
He's tied with Miles Sanders and Josh Jacobs as well at 5. But like Justin Fields has 160 carries.
Go Bucks.
Yeah, but it's a quarterback.
It's a quarterback. It's a different deal. Put him at running back and then see how many yards.
He did take a halfback toss this week.
I saw that. I
When
did.
Nick Chubb,
Tyvis, you heard Tyvis. Obviously, Justin finished at Ohio State, but anybody that touched soil in Columbus, Jameson Williams, Joe Burrows, they're all Buckeyes to me, right? Go Ohio State.
That's a fact.
Come on.
That is a fact.
I don't know if you guys
Buckeyes dropped the ball, not playing Joe Burrow.
I don't know if you guys heard us prior to this, but I'd be interested to get your opinion. We were talking about the criteria for Hall of Fame running backs. And we talked about how there's a lot of different ways that you can cut it. You've seen people like Terrell TD, who had 2,000 yards, but his career was cut short. Gale Sayers cut short. You see people with longevity like Curtis Martin. So you get down to the pipeline and saying, okay, well, what do you classify? Is it all pros? Is it longevity? Is
rushing titles?
Rushing titles? Because we got a guy like Frank Gore, who I think is third right now.
All time.
But
yards.
if you look at his play, his body of work and stats say Hall of Fame, but may not pass the eye test. So you two running backs, what do you guys look at as criteria for Hall of Fame?
Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer.
I agree with that.
If you can play that position for that long and be productive for that many years, that is the thing that separates him from a lot of other running backs. And his numbers aren't ridiculous. His numbers aren't, he's had some good years. But to be able to do that for that long, and every year that he played had some production, that's Hall of Fame worthy. You have other guys who have done it other ways. And I think there's no real set criteria. But I will say if you get to 10, 11,000 yards, right?
You're in that
I think that has
now.
a lot. Yeah, that has a lot to do with not only how well you've played, but how long you've played.
But Robert,
and I think we look at running backs when you talk about those. Huh? Go ahead.
I think it's a sliding scale. You know what shocked me? Go look at Troy Aikman's numbers and compare him to other Hall of Fame
Terry Bradshaw's.
Yeah, look at all those guys. They threw 1 million interceptions back in those
Terry
days.
Bradshaw threw a
million
pick for every touchdown.
And obviously the number of touchdowns changes now because it's a much more pass-heavy game. But
sure.
It's a sliding scale. It's definitely subjective.
But certainly, Robert, a rushing title is going to go a long way to getting a player into the Hall of Fame.
Frank Gore never won a rushing title.
No, but as they just said, he did it a different way. He did it with longevity.
He did it a different way, and I agree with Leroy. To play that position that long, that many carries, I don't care what your yards per carry, what your average is. Man, playing that long at that position, somebody's still unbelievable.
It's mind-boggling.
Thanks,
guys, we got to run. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Happy New Year to both. And
Happy New Year.
On this day, we're all miserable with Michigan and Ohio State watching TCU and Georgia.
Not me. The Bobcats run 30 to 27 over
Get out of here.
Send it to commercial, McNuggets. Get them off here.